Hello, welcome back everybody to another episode of Elephant in the Room. A new week, new beginning, another Monday. And in Malaysia today is a public holiday. This is our young Nipatuan Agong's birthday. Daulat Tuanku, happy birthday, Your Majesty. How are you, Taranjeet?
I'm very well, and a happy birthday, Your Majesty. It's great to have a holiday on a Monday. Always nice. Now back to reality that we are currently facing. Share with us, Muihan. How have the last couple of sessions been? What are your thoughts?
Thing is, have been extremely exciting for me and very interesting with all the guests that we have on board, especially last week. And that's why I think today, aptly so, we're going to do another episode of recap for our last four guests. And we started the week last Tuesday to actually focus primarily on what we call the reality today. And in that reality today, we wanted to explore the different themes from the new ways of learning to what is we like in agility, how about the business models and coping with them. And lastly, I think we ended the week to talk about mental health in addressing the current reality. So, your thoughts maybe, Taranjit, on that?
Yeah, sure. So I honestly like what is happening. It's a great opportunity to see this progression that we are on in Elephant in the Room. The feedback from viewers, the feedback from participants, guests, the feedback from the people around us have been extremely positive, which is great. And that's, and I feel comforted that we are hitting things which people are only thinking about, but they're not necessarily expressing, which is great. And today, like every Monday, we're doing a recap on this. And to start it off with, allow me to start off, Muihan. So to
Yeah,
start it
sure.
off with, we have Andrew Lau. If you remember, Andrew is the CEO of Think Codex. And we had the opportunity of him joining us early last week on the 2nd of June, episode 35. Sounds like a Star Wars thingy here. Episode 35. And the focus of that particular episode was the new ways of learning. So allow me to start very quickly about what were some of the takeaways from me, Muihan.
All right.
There were three specific things that Andrew looked at, and I really enjoyed the discourse that we had with him. One was around value creation, talking about, have we created anything new given the MCO period, given the COVID-19 period that we're talking about? And chances are maybe not. We're still talking about the same things. But the question is, have we now talked about revamping the delivery? So he talked about value delivery. And to that, it was very clear that yes, that delivery option has changed significantly. Then he went on to talk about value capture, the reframing of the business, the reframing of the operating model, and this dynamism between the customer base and the employee, given the fact that we can't really sit down and have that traditional conversations that we used to have before. So I quite like those three implications that he had, Muihan. What I
Yeah.
also like was we went in and talked about a bit more detail about the skills. What were some of the skills that he felt was important, and what were some of the things that he felt was required, especially today, given the changes that are taking place? And he raised a couple. One was agility, speed
Yeah.
to adapt was very clear. The other one was productivity, ensuring that we're able to drive the outcomes that we are supposed to be looking at. The third one was analytics. How do I use this data? We've got a lot of data. How do I use this data effectively? The fourth one he talked about was empathy. How do I go out there to critically drive some of these things forward? And the last one he talked about was digital literacy. And that essentially summed it all up for me. What about you, Muihan? What were some of your thoughts there?
I thought the idea of digital literacy is amazingly well explained. For instance, it's very critical today that we actually look at this more seriously. One of the biggest mistake, or I think taking things for granted, is I would say we, including management, including business owners, including those leading organization, big, medium, or small, would come to an assumption that our workforce, especially the younger ones, are generally technology savvy or digital savvy. Especially those born after the millennium, the year 2000 above. We all assume that they are what we call the digital natives. So as a result of them, this is fish in the water. They know how to navigate, they know how to swim, they know how to use the technology, they know how to use the gadgets, and so on and so forth. I think this is one area we need to be cognizant of and do not get into the trap of actually making that assumption. And that assumption is actually very, very dangerous to start with. And if you look at the current scenario of MCO, give us a very good cushion to really test this assumption out. And you find that actually many people suffer from using technology in such an intense, I would say, intense volume as well as speed. We're asking you to do a lot of things, which not easy to navigate this digital sphere. So I think Andrew raising that point became very, very important for us to really understand. So I thought that was something that stood out for me instead.
And what was also interesting in my mind, and we heard this earlier with the likes of Dr. Vanita as well as with some of the other guests, the issue about marginalization. You also have the net impact that not everybody, and this is to your point, Mihan, not everybody has the same level of access to digital technology as the other parts of the country are. So, for example, those who are predominantly in the urban areas, KL and Johor and what have you, okay, but when I go out further afar, it becomes a bit difficult. We take it for granted. And you know something? I took it for granted until I began to hear these sort of stories, because we don't consciously go to those parts of the world. And then you're thinking to yourself, well, have we done enough as a progressive nation to ensure that there's no digital inequality, especially given what we're currently facing right now? And I'm now concerned. I'm actually concerned. What about these people who are now coming out from the rural areas? And no disrespect to anyone, you are only as good as the experiences that you have. And if you don't have these experiences and you don't have access to mobile devices, how difficult is it going to be for you to interact in the way that the authorities or the powers that be expect you to do so?
So one quick update for you as well as to our guests for the tertiary education, especially in the public sector, because since I sit as one of the adjunct professors in one of the public universities, if you remember, at the moment we hit MCO, actually orders were given to send all of them back. I think half of the students went back in most campuses. And then they decided not to let everybody stay in campus, would be then safer. And by the end of about 3 weeks ago, the whole decision was to send everybody back, also just in time for Raya and things like that. Now, with the lifting of MCO and from CMCO now to RMCO, I don't know what other adjectives we're going to have soon. The idea now is to invite those students to come back, especially those in the areas where they don't have digital access. So the universities are having a to and fro game from sending them back, bringing them back, then sending back again, and coming back again, because they realize that in order to do any online learning, if they don't have access, is actually major disadvantage. So better still, let them stay in campus. On campus, at least we are all wired up, no matter which is the campus. So that was just.
But this is the point I'm trying to make, and this should not be the case. We should have it in a way where ideally we should all be on campus, but if we don't, there needs to be this. And this is a mark of a progressive nation that we claim we are going down that path. And yes, you are already seeing this digital divide coming out and marginalization coming out very effectively. What I also like, and let me conclude this point with Andrew, what I really like is his quote right at the end. Yeah. And he quoted, "Opportunities are never lost. Instead, they are passed on to those who are ready to receive and act upon them. That for me was an amazing insight. It's
Yes.
there, whether you want to get it or not. And for me, that was my takeaway from Andrew's discussion. Muyan?
Yeah. So following that discussion, the next following day, we have our good friend, Mr. Zohrab Chong, to actually join us. And Zohrab was on Elephant in the Room on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, on the
Yeah,
3rd.
last Wednesday on the 3rd. So we had a very good opportunity to have this discussion of talking about it's no longer the new normal or what is going to be. It is happening now. It is reality now. And that is a mindset that we wanted to further deepen among our audience as well as all those people that we work with or we consult with in that sense. Because there's a lot of talk of what it's going to be, but guys, wake up is no longer going to be, it's already happening. And
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Laura raised a very, very many critical points regarding this matter, which I thought something that wanted to just highlight in terms of the people management, it is something very different moving forward, the blended between the remote and those who are with you, or those even in that arrangement need to be have flexible in the sense that they could be with you for 2 days in the office and another 3 days remotely, or vice versa, and that form. And therefore, that demands higher capability or leadership qualities for our managers and our leaders. So if they already struggle to manage them face to face, now we have just lifted the requirement for our managers and for leaders to not only manage them face to face, but also how do we manage them remotely effectively. That's where I think Zohrab raised that good point of having the ability to facilitate, which is very critical. So facilitate a meeting, facilitate a discussion, facilitate a workshop. It is very critical, the point of facilitation. And that facilitation is applicable both in a physical setting as well as a virtual setting. How about
Absolutely.
your thoughts on
No, no,
Zohrab?
yeah, absolutely right. And the thing that we really focused on, which I truly enjoyed listening to Zohrab, and he has so much of energy around him. It's almost you just have to sit down there and just imbibe it. It's quite infectious in that regard. And what I really truly enjoyed listening to Zohrab was the point around customer management. We talk a lot about internal management. We talk a lot about strategy and operations. How do I manage my team? And you've hit that, Muihan, the effective remote management itself. But he went on one step further to say, we also now need to manage the customers because the expectations of the customers have shifted. We're seeing that happening out with Sean To, where he's now re-looking at the approach to customers. We're seeing that being managed by Andrew when he talked about value delivery. How do I now maintain, if not lift that game? And in there, he also then mentioned the area about gig, and which was quite nice of him and quite sneaky as well. I think we need to bring him back to actually bring back and talk about that gig thing. So, and I think that's worth more than 30 minutes of a discussion, and it'll be interesting
And
to
we
now
do have Zohrab with us this evening.
yes.
Hi, Zohrab.
So
Glad
so
that you.
I am talking in front of him, so it's not behind his back. Yeah. So but it's a very valid point, and I certainly enjoyed that particular discussion there. Muihan?
And I think one of the key questions we've been raising on air and off air between ourselves with Zohrab was this big question of is talent management dead? And I think the plan is we should maybe do a special show on this to really discuss this big elephant in the room.
Absolutely.
Because for the
Absolutely.
longest time ever, the entire industry have been investing tremendous resource and focus and energy on talent management. But
Absolutely.
come this scenario, it has become a very, very interesting perspective altogether.
And the dynamics have changed, Muihan. I mean, you now have a very different. We've got, as of this week, if I remember reading correctly, it's 680,000 people unemployed, and the ticker tape is still running out and going up rather. expectations by MIER by the end of the year, early part of next year, it's 2 million people. I personally am looking in my own computation, I'm looking at 2.1, 2.2 million or thereabouts. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we are all wrong, but that's the reality on the ground. Now, the question is, if majority of those individuals now go out there to develop their own businesses because of the area of expertise that they bring to the table, call them gig or call them freelancers or non-permanent staff, whatever the deal may be, how do we manage them? Do I really need to have a talent management council to determine progression? Do I need to talk about succession planning in this? The discussions have changed considerably in this regard. Muihan?
So I think wanted the last one to conclude on the session with Zohrab was this whole idea that people development is the one that will drive continuous business growth and sustainability, regardless whether the people are our permanent staff, our contract staff, our gig staff, so and so forth, right? And I think that is one pertinent point that we wanted to drive across business owner, business leaders, as well as senior management teams to do that. And I think Zohrab closed the session with final piece of advice to talk about don't think about what to do anymore. Need to do it already because it is real and it gets, right? If you make a mistake, then at least you know you are quick to iterate and move on, rather than keep debating, which I think some senior management teams are doing. They are sitting and waiting, and the longer they wait, the worse it becomes, right? So I think that was one final thing that we wanted to highlight.
Final note, Zohrab actually mentioned, and he's come back and he says, okay, let's do that. Let's have this discussion crunch time. The government has just announced the Gig Economy Initiative too. Now, I have got my own views on this, as I'm sure all of us. So it'll be interesting to bring that to the table and let's have a bit of a chit chat around that. Let's move along, Muihan.
Yep. So last Thursday, we have the proud pleasure of hosting Dhamiri Petra. And with Dhamiri, we talk about the entire game of agility, because agility has been a constant theme that's been running for our last few 20 episodes at least to count. And we wanted to bring in a perspective of what is agility in a very new reality or in the current reality, and maybe you can share your thoughts first on that.
Sure. And Dhamiri, I think, was important, that particular discussion, because he nailed a couple of things for us. One was agility as an individual. How do we go out there to lift ourselves up? All things being equal, how do we lift ourselves up in these very uncertain times? And the other one was agility in the workplace. What do we now need to do to ensure that both the employer and the employee are providing equal support to each other as this game is being lifted? The thing that also came out was the fact that, and he made it very clear, the lifespan of skills are now reducing. It used to be 7 to 8 years, 10 years before you see this revision taking place and you have to reinvent. But right now, he mentioned 3 to 5 years. I'm actually thinking it's actually 18 to 24, 36 months. Because of the speed at which we are now moving as an economy, the speed at which we are moving as a nation. Yes.
Quick point to that. It is 18 to 24 months, Taranjeet. The major implication I always talk about this is it literally sets our university obsolete, don't you think? Because most university courses are 3 to 4 years. So imagine if we just take 4 years for debate purposes. If the half-life of skill set is 4 years, literally means the moment you enter university and by the time you graduate, your skill set is half obsolete.
So I think there is a requirement for us to differentiate between professional courses and those courses that are more hands-on or technical. Now, if I'm professional courses, I'm doing the medicals, I'm doing the architecturals, I'm doing the law and the engineering and all those professional. Absolutely. I need 7 years to make sure that I'm able to even touch the scalpel. before I enter into brain surgery. I need that. And that's no two ways about it, simply because of the magnitude and the implication and the complexity of the role. However, if I'm now talking about a little bit more hands-on and technical, and that's what I mean by skills. It's not about knowledge. It's about the
Mm.
skills that I'm bringing to the table. Knowledge base is still there. That will not change. But it's how I now determine. I mean, gone are the days of Encyclopedia Britannica, which we used to have all
Yeah.
25 cents. Now it's hello Google, so what's the deal? And that's what I mean by this. I'm not expecting my child to go out there and let's review Encyclopedia Britannica volume 2 page 3. No, those days have gone. So my going in, and you rightly pointed this out in one of the discussions I had with one of the university folks. We touched the same thing. Is the university still relevant? And this discussion took place about 2 years ago. And Bob's your uncle, with Galloway's report, or rather the write-up that he talked about, it calls into question the very basis of the Center of Higher Education. I'm not saying that we have to remove it altogether. All I'm saying is the notion of this now has to change given what we're currently going through. Wihan?
So one important point that Dhamiri raised, which I thought I want to re-highlight here again, is while we talk about agility and adaptability, we also need to be very practical in that sense. And I think this is one discussion we caught on from Sharin Asmi, I think both in his LinkedIn postings, as well as also his first question posted to talk about, even we want to inculcate agility, are employers open enough, transparent enough, and willing to adopt that? Because most bosses are very fixated into the functional and technical skill of a particular talent in that sense. So one area that we explore was, I think he quoted, or Dhamiri quoted this example of, it is almost impossible, not totally impossible, but almost impossible to change a coal miner to a data miner. So
Overnight.
overnight.
Yes. Overnight.
And this is where we need to be more practical in moving our development of people, both as an organization as well as an individual. So as an individual, if you feel the need to actually embrace diversity in skill set, great for you, because that realization is not easy to come by, or not many people will have such realization or have the urge to actually do something about it. However, I think the message is, please be more realistic. Don't overnight or within the year or within even maybe 18 months, I think it's a bit of a stretch, that you want to become the next data scientist, or you want to become the next Python coder and things like that, and try to do commercial work and make money out of it. So I think that was the perspective rather.
Okay, good, very, very valid point. And our last guest, Muihan.
Yeah.
The last guest we had was Malathi. And Malathi we had on the 5th of June. An absolute delight as always. And she's on the list right now.
Yeah.
And what she did was she brought a very different perspective to the table. And that was the perspective around mental health and well-being. And what I thoroughly enjoyed just hearing her takeaways was the implication around the social ramifications if we don't go out there and address this head on. At least from an Australian perspective, and I'm hearing this even here in Malaysia, the ramifications on the social impact that this financial hardship has caused and will continue to cause is quite substantive. And we cannot ignore this sort of impact on the families that we have and the people that are around us. Coping. She talked about coping mechanisms. I am, if I'm going off to work, I will on the car, get into the car, and Bob's your uncle, I'm already switched off. I don't have to think about home until I come back in the evening. But right now, home and work are staring me in the face at any one point in time during the day. How do I manage that? Something has to give. And I'm glad we had her on board, and she provided us some very insightful thoughts around how this can be done moving forward. Muihan?
So I think that was very key for our audience to also partake and understand. And I think this is a very big elephant most of us juggle with, especially adopting working from home as our new culture or our new practices. As uh, in fact, I think I raised this before, and you justify it. I would say that I can empathize with all the working moms, but you say dads as well, given uh, with younger children especially, I will feel because the whole working from home also tie in with schooling from home. And younger kids, I think schooling from home need parental guidance to actually sit together with the child, looking at the screen, either interacting with the teacher or just interacting with some videos that's being played by the school or by their daycare center, whichever apply. So the demands for working parents in this period and moving forward, it is no joke. It is no joke, and therefore it would have a mental strain on their wellness and well-being. So very aptly that we got Malathi to come on to really address this, talk about this, and give at least our audience some idea and perspective. And I wanted to talk about that. I think she talked about this. Quoted this by Louis Evans about the 5 chairs, 5 choices, the 5 questions to ask. And we have shared that link on the YouTube video to watch. And we hope that some of you who tune in also do watch. Maybe we will share it again here so that you have a bigger opportunity to rewatch that. And we thought it was very, very important and useful. At least I did. And I really like the perspective on that. Any thoughts from you, Taranjeet?
No, absolutely. And I'm cognizant of time. We're hitting the last couple of minutes. Perhaps if we could do a bit of a shout out, Muihan. Let's go on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
So please go ahead.
So let's thank these few individuals that have just tuned in and also watched our show, and they've been around almost daily, and we are so thankful to have all of you. So we have both Sujit and Bhagawan from Perth, okay, and good that Sujit actually met my friend Jaipal in Perth. Yes, so Jaipal is supposed to get married, but I don't know what happened due to COVID. Hopefully that plans has not been derailed, because we've been waiting for that for the longest time ever. When we heard it's going to happen this year, we are very happy. So if Jaipal, you're tuning in, please update me on your marriage plans. Okay. Ben Hoy, thank you for tuning in. My good brother KJ Cole, welcome. Malathi, we have already did. Sulin, thank you for you being around, as well as we have Ranjit, right, from Naka. Thank you for coming in. Okay, there are a few comments here by Malathi. So that we, yes, talk about university becoming more flexible as well, becoming real world ready. Yes, I think that is a big debate in the education world currently, especially tertiary education, where your students and learners are actually more independent, and now they can actually have more access to different perspectives, as well as maybe even university. So imagine if Harvard to offer an online program that is available to all. I think most people will rather do an online program with Harvard than anything else. Just to say, right? Okay. And well, yes, I think that's about it. So let's maybe talk about what's coming in the coming days, which I think is important. And of course, we have introduced that, but let me just quickly pull up the slides again. Right. So in tomorrow's session, we will have your good friend, Mr. Kevin Yong, to be with us. Quick background on Kevin, Taranjeet?
Sure. It's a pleasure. So Kevin comes in with close to about 17 to 18 years worth of experience in the recruitment side, having had experiences regionally out in the Middle East as well as here in our part of the world, Malaysia. He will be sharing with us his views about the implication of this MCO and COVID-19 at a regional as well as at a local level. How has this really impacted the way jobs are now being sourced and employees or individuals are now applying for work? Has this impacted us negatively? So I'll be very keen to hear what Kevin has to say tomorrow. Who else do we have?
On
Renuka,
Wednesday,
yes.
we have Renuka Singham, who is a founder as well as a owner of her own personal image consulting firm. And we wanted to bring Renuka on to focus entirely on this having a professional image and how to project that, especially in moving forward, working virtually behind the screen. How do you project that for both your stakeholders, your clients, as well as if you are managing a team? And what are the things to look out for? And in fact, given that how does professional imaging differs from face-to-face versus on the screen? Is it more? Is it less? Is it different? Yes. So that conversation we will have with Renuka on Wednesday, right? So on Thursday we have Adli Walid. Adli Walid is from Simdabi Oils. A quick introduction maybe from you, Taranjeet.
Sure. So Adli, a very dear ex-working colleague of mine, he's progressed really well, and he's currently looking after a particular stream in Samdabi Oils. It'll be very interesting to hear where he's coming from and how these big boys, the bigger boys, are now being impacted. How has that impact been, and what are some of the things that we are now looking out for as we move into a more unrestricted a movement control order in this regard? So that'll be on Thursday. It'll be good to hear what Adli has to say. Friday.
Yeah, and to conclude the week, we have the managing director for APAC CMI, Chartered Management of Institute APAC, Asia Pacific, Mr. David Jones, to come on. And what will be David sharing with us primarily, Taranjeet?
Sure. So David, he brings lots of experience and a wealth of knowledge in the area of management. He's been now with us here in Malaysia for a long time. Let's hear where he's coming from when he comes on board. But the focus that he'll be looking at is predominantly around what does it take now for managers to do as they effectively manage the workforce that they have before us. Is it the same as before, or is it different? And you and I have started the discussion by saying the capabilities and the criteria have now changed. So let's hear where David is coming from in this regard as we start to progress down that path. Wihan?
All right. So one last thing, we need your help again. We need to help your help to help us to promote as well as to share with your friends our YouTube channel, Elephant in the Room. And if you can get them to subscribe and hit the bell button so that they get notification every time we post up a new episode, that will be truly appreciative, and we are grateful for that. So if you can, please do get your friends, to get your family members to say, hey, you got to check this channel out, and there's a lot of exciting content that we've been doing for the last 38 shows. This is 39, right? 38 shows on various topics with various interesting guest speakers. So with that, if you can help us to promote our YouTube channel, right? So with that, thank you very much on a Monday evening, and we look forward to see you tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Malaysia time, 10 a.m. GMT, to be with our guest, Mr. Kevin Yong. Until then, thank you and bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.